So gonna make sure everything is up and going. Hello, YouTube. Hello, Instagram. Hello, RunPainFree. Hello, RunPainFree Academy. Hello, everybody everywhere. I'm looking at different cameras. So if you're seeing me over here, it's YouTube. If I'm over here, it's our Instagram. Welcome to the RunPainFree live stream. We haven't done these in a while, but we actually do these a lot. So we are doing live Q&A for marathon training injuries. This is high injury season, and it's a little different this year because most of you are running virtually. Only a few races have gone live, and actually people are out there running races, but for the most part, everybody is running virtually. And that limits you to the access that you have to people who actually know what they're talking about when it comes to injuries. So we did a live Q&A. We actually do these often, and we haven't because of the things that we're dealing with right now in the world. So still going on with everything to do with marathon training. And so let's talk about it. First things first, if you are running in pain, your body is telling you stuff that you need to pay attention to. It is not for you to run through that pain. It's information. So you might hear people say, well, Jessica always tells me to keep running. And that's because the running is feedback. The pain is information. We take it, we use it, and then we test it with what goes on in the run. And the run tells you what we're doing, if it's right or wrong, and to get it all fixed up. So the first thing is to just know that that pain that you're feeling is feedback. And what we do here is actually help you understand that and get that together. So it's been a long time since we've been on live, actually. We've been doing a lot of things. Marathon Training Summit, which was experts all over the world that actually talks about what happens during marathon training and things like injuries that come about. So it's high season, and I want to get on here. I have a ton of people right now hitting their long runs because they are running virtuals. That running didn't get canceled, even though a lot of other things did. Running is not canceled. So people have still been running. I have to say everybody in RunPainFree is greatly progressing, and I'm excited about that. But I actually got some feedback this weekend from a couple of people who just reached out to me in pain. And I was like, oh, wow, like people are really still cooking, doing these long runs, and they're not following anything properly. And so I said, let me go online and answer some questions. So that's what I'm going to do. Hope everybody's having a great Monday. We're getting started. It's getting cooler, and we're getting closer to things that you all need to pay attention to. So first things first, let's go into it. Got to be foam rolling. If you're not foam rolling, you're not only wasting your time out there running, but you're asking for an injury, which is more important. Foam rolling is not a cure. It is just the gateway to your body and to understanding what's going on. I can't tell you how many people that have been foam rolling for years, even with me, will still find stuff in their body by foam rolling a certain way, and angles matter. And the one thing that I've learned in quarantine and watching everybody at home foam roll with me at my home is angles really were off. And so I was able to really be like, I see what you've been doing. Yeah, no, that doesn't work that way. The angles really do matter when it comes to foam rolling. Even with the balling and all that stuff, balling doesn't do what foam rolling does. Foam rolling doesn't do what sticking does, and all reversed. Everything does something very specific. So foam rolling is the steam rolling of things out. Balling is extremely specific, and sticking is like in between things and more like vigorous activation, if you will. It's something you do like right before or in between sets when you're doing athletic conditioning. You don't release tension with sticking that way. Now, I stick people, that's different. I'm talking about you doing it yourself. So I stick people, I'm going to release. It's different, right? My elbow, I release. When you are actively doing it, it's totally different when it comes to sticking. So don't stick from the knee up. Make sure from the knee down, you can stick all your lower leg stuff, but not doing anything from the knee up. As soon as you fold over with the stick and you try to start rolling, you actually fire your quad, and you can test that right now. Sit on the floor, put your legs out, and just put your hand on your quad, and just lean forward. You'll feel your quad fire right away. So if a muscle is firing, you actually can't release it, and you're just creating a fight in there. When you're like bent over going for it, you're just creating a fight. So keep foam rolling from the knee all the way up, back and front, and keep the sticking of yourself to the lower part of the body, the lower leg, underneath the leg. This is a high season for plantar fasciitis, shin splints, hamstring strains, foot pain. All of that is actually the same injury. And so it's all different stages of the same injury. So it's a muscular representation of a joint dysfunction, which is a real problem. So you want to make sure that you're addressing those things, looking at how you're moving, looking at what you're doing, how often are you running. I have somebody who actually ran 18 miles last weekend, ran 10 miles during the week, and then was trying to put up 20 this past weekend. And then wanted to know by the time he hit mile 17 why his feet were hurting, his leg was hurting. And I'm like, because you put too many miles on it. That's ridiculous. No one should be putting up those kinds of miles in bulk like that. That's not healthy at all. And your ability to run a long run, your ability to run a half marathon or a full marathon is not from running actual miles. It's from the collective of conditioning that you've done over a certain period of time. So just because you can run 20 miles doesn't necessarily mean you can run 26.2 miles. It doesn't. The conditioning, the work, the rest, the recovery, all of that is what is enabling you to run those miles. So when someone's out there just cooking and running you to run those miles. So when someone's out there just cooking and running 5-6 days a week and putting up tons of miles, it's high injury. So there's an 80% of injuries, runners that are injured as a collective in the sport of long distance running. And that's why. It's a large reason why. Overrunning is real. So you're overrunning and you're doing all of these things, but you don't really feel it until it's coming up on those long runs. So today I'm going to scroll through. I see a bunch of questions coming in. So I'm going to scroll through in a couple of minutes and start answering questions. So if you're just signing on, hi everybody. If you're just signing on, type in a question. I'm going to see it. It's a little delayed on all of these guys. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Instagram on RunPainFree Academy and RunPainFree. So if you just type in your question, I'll answer it live. That's what I'm here to do. So I'm going to wait and let it scroll in because there's a delay. But anyway, so lower legs, lower legs, lower legs. So if you're feeling a lot of foot pain, if you're feeling a lot of arch pain, and you're not foam rolling, understand that your Achilles is your hamstring. Okay, so you have a direct connection from the back of your heel all the way to the base of your glute, and that's your hamstring. The muscle attaches to bone via tendon. It's the Achilles tendon. So the hamstring comes in to form your Achilles tendon, and that attaches at the bone. So when the base of your heel is pulling like plantar fasciitis or arch pain, that's because the hamstring is what's really overdoing stuff and overworking from a hip dysfunction. That's an always statement, always know that. Hamstring is the muscular representation of a hip dysfunction. The hamstring muscle is the muscular representation of a hip dysfunction, okay? So if you're feeling anything in your foot, always know it's your hip. It's coming from your hip. You want to feel it in your foot. You want to feel it down there. You don't want to feel hip pain at your hip. That's something you don't want. You want to feel it down at the bottom. You want to feel it down there. It's easier to fix down there and you can get it quicker, okay? So embrace it. Thank you, body, for telling me something going wrong up top. Let's fix it down below and you'll naturally start to work your way up and get to the root, okay? So foot pain is a big problem right now. So this is the season where people are getting in more long runs more frequently, if not coming up on like wine glasses next week. We've got London coming up. Those who didn't know London's happening, London is happening. So people, elites are in London. They're landing there. They're running it. So things are happening. So this is the time where people are getting ready to start running, and whatever you've done or not done, I'm going to get into that too, because you know I love it. I'm going to talk about what you didn't do, is going to show up now. So foot pain, shin splints, calf strains, Achilles tendonitis, Achilles pain is all the exact same injury on different phases of that injury, okay? You have to release your arch to release your calf, and you have to release your calf to release your arch. Most people are only foam rolling or sticking their calf. They're not getting down into their Achilles. They're not going over it. I just had one of my sessions this morning with a client in Utah. I've had her for years. And she actually came for plantar fasciitis, and I realized it was her psoas years ago, super severe actually, which is the biggest muscle, the deepest muscle in the body that is really important for runners. We corrected that. She's good. After correction, she became a marathoner. And then with quarantine, she actually stopped running like most people. And then all of a sudden, people started to creep up with running a little bit more here and there and adding a little bit more miles here and there, and not realizing that their body hadn't been doing what they're normally doing this time of year. And then they started adding all these miles on, and now they got foot pain. It's a big thing right now. I'm getting messages every day about foot pain arch pain, heel pain, Achilles pain, or plantar fasciitis, all of the above. So I said, show me how you're sticking. And she sticked everything lower leg great, but her Achilles. She did not directly go over it. You got to go directly over your Achilles. It is the thickest tendon in the body, but it's also the least amount of blood supplied tendon in the body. No blood flow, pain. Blood flow, no pain. If you don't have blood flow there, it's at a vulnerability for pain because there's a lack of mobility, right? It doesn't move a lot. Blood is juice, juicy juice. So if there's no blood getting into that area, it's going to move differently. Your ankle flexion is hip flexion. So if your ankle stops doing what it needs to do, guess what else isn't doing what it needs to do? Your hip. That's a bigger problem. So when you're starting to feel stiffness in your ankle and ball of your foot pain or arch pain, it's because things are trying to work down there to do this mileage, and they're actually not able to do that because there's a lack of blood flow. So the sticking down there generates the blood flow, and then then your foot can start to work again, and your Achilles can flex and extend, which will then make your calf more pliable, more ready to go, and everything starts being more elongated and more flexible and all that good stuff. But so when you're not directly over your sticking your actual Achilles, you're not going to bust it. Okay, it's not going to happen. You would never do that to yourself. First of all, again, it's a very thick tendon. You just got to get on top of it and get into it. So get into there and really get it. But then also, after you're done sticking it and your whole lower leg, really get into the Achilles, you got to step on the stick too. You have to step on the stick too. I have so many podcasts and so many videos and live rants for years and years and years on Facebook, at our events here in the city, at our events in Florida, everything that we do on feet, because there's so much hogwash out here about feet. And half of you are in sneakers that are killing your feet, crushing your runs, and you're in legitimate injuries for zero reason other than external stupidity that someone told you to do, that with no education told you to do. So the bulk of all of our information really starts at the feet, because if your feet aren't moving, your hips will never function. It's just never going to happen. It's not going to happen. So I do a lot of stuff about how your foot is hitting the ground, your running gait, what's on your foot, what external stuff you're putting on your feet that are actually stopping your arch from actually releasing power. I always say the power of the runner is lost in the arch. Lost in the arch. Because as much as I can correct your glutes, I have to make sure your foot is working. Otherwise, your foot never gets a chance to fire. Your glute never gets a chance to fire if that guy doesn't come through. It's tissue first, joint second, muscle is last. So the glute fires after the joint is free, but that happens via tissue, rolling, juicy, 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 juicy. So if you don't know how to foam roll, you need to go on over the foam roll series in RunPainFreeAcademy.com, whole foam rolling series if you need to get into that. Okay, I'm going to scroll now and check for my questions on everywhere. I have questions. I have YouTube and Instagram going at the same time. So I have to check everywhere. Okay. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see you all. It's been a while. Nice to see everybody. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Every time I run, I have a sharp pain in my heel, but I'm a toe striker. Does that have anything to do with it? Okay, so if you didn't hear the question, sharp pain in my heel and I'm a toe striker, does that have anything to do with it? Big capital letters, yes, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, yes. Unless you're a track and field person, you shouldn't be running on your toes. That's actually forced. So you naturally walk heel to toe. 1% of human beings walk on their toes, 1%. It's not normal, okay? So, and those that do that have consistent calf strains and shin splints, and they deal with on a regular basis. So for them, everybody really walks heel to toe. Long distance running is walking with over a long period of time with velocity. That's what long distance running is. So when you are training toe striking, which is track and field sprinting, and then taking that muscle development, because that's what track and field does. I have an entire video on this, okay? It's called toe striking. That muscle development in the toe striking creates muscles for track and field, but you're going to go run a marathon. That doesn't translate. So that's why you'll tank mile 8, mile 9, your feet start hurting, your quads start shaking. And then by mile 13, 14, your legs start to stiffen up, and then you're hitting a wall at 22. Run pain-free runners don't hit walls because we train full mechanics, biomechanics for long distance running. So we make sure that you are functional head to toe. When we train a long distance runner and fix a long distance runner, we make you an optimal human being in movement, in terms of movement. So the two don't translate. Track and field is great for track and field, but it's a totally different sport when it comes to long distance running. And so the Marathon Training Summit that we did, we had a lot of elites on there. We had Olympians on there. We had running scientists on there. And all of them said, without me prompting, speed work does not belong in a long distance runner regimen. It just doesn't. It causes a lot of these plantar fasciitis, shin splints, metatarsal stress fractures, as well as your stability sneaker. So that's my question back to you. Are you in a stability sneaker? If you're in a stability sneaker, you naturally are in your toe because the sneaker forces it. So if someone is in a stability sneaker and does track and field speed work, that would be a double whammy. Yeah, speed work, but your foot may want to go heel to toe because that's normal function for your hip and your glute, but your shoe's not going to allow it. And so that creates a fight. That creates a fight in your foot. And so if you just, again, stand up right now and go up into your toes, do a calf raise right now and hold it. How long can you hold it before your calf starts to cramp? How long? Well, now you're prancing on your toes like that on the run. And here's the real science behind that. It's really humanly impossible for you to stay on your toes, double toes, for more than a couple of minutes. Again, athleticism respectively will change this, but even still, there is a moment, and I'm being nice, I'll give you 20 minutes on two toes before you start to do what I call a limp range on this. It's on my toe striking video. What was nice is I actually was making the video, and that was footage that I found naturally, that this person was naturally limp running, toe striking on one foot, mid and heel on the other. And so when you do that, you're now doing the limp run. It's a gallop. If you're going fast, you can't see it, but I do. And I love when we're in the park here in New York City and I have runners around me during their sessions and they like to gather and hang out and stuff. And they just watch runners run by and they're like, oh my God, I can see, look at that run, look at that limp run. Oh, they're hyperextending on that one foot. Look at that. And you can see it once I open your eyes to it. So look at it. Watch people's feet next time you're around a lot of runners. Watch their foot, toe striking on one, mid or heel on the other. That now, instead of your hips doing this, your hips are doing this. That's jacking them up. Hips are in dysfunction, and now every muscle on you has to compromise because your hips are the direct referring pain to your spine. So most back pain is referred hip pain because of hip dysfunction. Backs show up really late. The back will show up really late. I'm a back injury person. I'm a hip and my femur. I'm a back end. I have all my lumbar discs are hugely bulging. I was hit by a truck. Sidebar, hit by a truck. So when the back shows up really late to that, right? But I had back pain for a long time. And when I separated my spine from my hips, that's when I was like, oh, this is my hip. It's not even my back. It took a year for my back to actually have direct back pain. Back pain shows up last. So when we're talking about muscles that have to constantly compromise, it's because they're always in protection of your spine. Your spine is the most protected structure in your body. Movement-wise, everything else will break before your back. Everything. It's the most important structure. So your sacrum, your SI joint, sciatica, groin pain, groin strain, hamstring strains. Your SI joint is in dysfunction from the muscular development inside over compromising the psoas. So there's a lot of stuff happening up that's just expressing low. Yeah. So when the hips are in this limp run, they're jacking everything up. Your pelvis is off. Your SI joint is off. You'll get sciatica. Sciatica doesn't have to go down the back of your leg to be sciatica, guys. It doesn't. It just has to be pain. It could be down the front of your leg. It could be down the back of your leg. It could sit in your booty. It doesn't have to go anywhere, really. It's still sciatica pain. And then there's this nerve tingling feeling in the front part of your lower leg. You ever get like a numbness in the front part of your leg down by your ankle, or your ankle kind of feels stiff? That's the peroneal nerve that comes out as well by the sciatic nerve. So we lost one connection. I hope you come back. RunPainFree Academy Instagram. So there's a couple of things that go on, and so these things all start to overwork and overcompromise, because it's in protection of your joints. It's in protection of your hip joint, your knee, your ankle, and your spine. And so all of this is really happening by your little itty bitty talking of your lower legs, your foot pain, your arch pain. That's all telling you something is wrong up top that you need to pay attention to. So I hope that answers your question. That's a long answer to the question. I tend to do extended answers. So go ahead. It's fine. Keep asking. Well, this person I know personally attacked because yes, and that's because they didn't listen to me and they wore sneakers they shouldn't have. Okay, no, this next one, don't worry about being long. I like long questions. Can you advise on piriformis syndrome and running? I stopped running for 2 weeks due to piriformis, and it didn't get any better. I ran yesterday and it's now worse, but it's not worse, but it seems to have gotten better. Great question. When you're in pain and you stop, sure, the pain's going to stop. That doesn't mean it's fixed. That's one of the biggest misconceptions people do. If the action of is what exposed the pain and you stop running, the pain's going to stop, right? The problem didn't go anywhere. The problem is still there. Piriformis syndrome, look at the word syndrome as code for I have no idea what's wrong with you. I don't know how to fix it. So you just have this forever. RunPainFree deals with syndromes, itis, chronic, forevers. That's what we deal with, and we fix them because that's crap. No one's dealing with that for the rest of their life. That's ridiculous. So piriformis syndrome is because your SI pulled on from your psoas. The psoas muscle comes down right at where your rib, up between your shoulder blades, okay? You have your C spine, and then your shoulder blade area is your T spine, and then your lumbar starts way up here. This is where the lumbar starts. Female, male or brush, that's where the lumbar starts, T12, L1. The entire rest of your back is lumbar spine, all the way down to where the curve starts, and that's your sacrum, SI joint, the sacrum, the bottom part of your spine. People think their lumbar is just here. It's not. It's the bulk of your back, okay? The psoas aligns each side of the entire lumbar. It's a very big muscle. It is on your spine. It goes all the way down your spine, down the lumbar, and outside of your sacrum. It goes inside your iliac crest, because you'll hear iliac psoas, yeah? And then it comes inside and then attaches inside your femurs. This muscle attaches your upper body to your lower body. It dictates standing, sitting, walking, and running. That's why runners have so many issues with it and don't ever get it addressed. It's the deepest muscle in the body you can have a problem with. That being said, what happens is, say you're running and you don't feel like you have pickup, that's a psoas issue. You can't open up, that's a psoas issue. Hamstring strains, tight groins, you would be told you have a tight hip flexor, all BS. The psoas is protecting your spine because your hips are in dysfunction, and then it shifts your SI joint and shifts your hips, and then you would have piriformis screaming. So what happens is your sacrum is like this, yeah? And you have two piriformis muscles that are long. They come out of your sacrum. Right on the sacrum right here is the SI joint. It's a line. It's a vertical joint. And that's where the two hips kind of come in and clock in, okay? I'm speaking super layman, the psoas muscle goes right over that joint. So when that sucker is too tight, it pulls, and then it pulls on your sacrum. In medicine, a sucker can change your life, literally. So if there's any kind of tug on that sacrum, it shifts your hip joints. And then what happens is the sciatic nerve is right beneath that piriformis muscle. It's right underneath it. And so is the peroneal nerve. So what's happening is that's getting tugged on by this big tongue of a muscle. It's a very long muscle. It's very thick. And then it shifts your sacrum and it presses down on your piriformis, and that's what starts to get it annoyed. What you need to do is take a golf ball. I always have them handy. Of course, it's a golf ball, and sit on the floor and make sure your leg is straight. Take notes, everybody. I'm giving gems. So you're going to take the golf ball and you're going to shift it under. Sit it underneath your glute. Just shove it underneath there. Keep your legs straight. You will find the spot that hurts. The moment you do, hang out. You want to get it as close to the insertion of your SI joint as possible. So you'll feel bone, you'll feel it. So you don't want to go on the bone. You want to be up against it, kind of right as close as possible as you can, and hang out there. Then easily, as your leg is straight, just keeping your leg on the ground, bend your knee outward and just drag it up super, super slow. The more when you bend your knee, you open your edge. That's opening up your edge. Have your leg like that on the floor. You need to get in there to release it from the grip it has on the SI joint, and that will help you release your psoas. You need to foam roll the front part of your thigh way up high by your hip flexor. That will be a spot too to hold. And then your inner thigh. When you foam roll those 3 spots or sit on a ball on those 3 spots, you'll release the psoas off the SI joint, and then that will help the piriformis actually release. You have to release that. That's just the relief, yeah? But then you have to work your glute and you have to retrain your hip function. That's correction. But that at least will get you on the path to releasing it. Not running is not helping anything. That's not going to ever be the case. And stay running, because running is the feedback. So I need to redo this over here because for some reason it's my one went down. So I need to redo it. But really quickly, the run is feedback. So what we do, you go run, and the run tells us what's happening. So we understand if we're in the right spot, if we're on the right pattern, because we're following movement patterns. How your piriformis is blaring is because your patterns are in dysfunction. You have a dysfunctional movement pattern. We have to find that. So the run gives us that information. So we release it. We fire the muscle that should be firing, get the joint relaxed so it can be mobile, and then go on the run. That's why it's a big system and it's an actual program stuff. So that's does that help anything? Let me see if I scroll up. Does that help your answer? Help your question? Because you totally don't, you should be running. You should be running because you need to move your joints. Tell you how much that will change everything. I do a lot of weight and good for strength stuff afterwards. This is so helpful. You're welcome. So listen, I'm a strength and conditioning coach. So because you're lifting, that's part of the problem, because your function. I have a podcast on how it can hurt a runner. And oh, good, you're doing it right now. Wonderful. Continue while I talk. Everybody can learn from this because this is a big problem. Sciatica, glute pain, all that's a big problem. But the biggest thing people do is they go work out. I have an entire podcast on how working out will hurt a runner. Now, I want you to get to a place where you're lifting, throwing kettlebells, strengthening that movement pattern that is going to athletically condition you. I want you there. But if you're doing that, you actually are building all these muscles in dysfunction. And so you actually condition an injury, literally. So make sure you go to my podcast, get that podcast, RunPainFreePodcast.com, and it's on there. It's one of the podcast episodes I've done, and I got a ton of feedback on it because people run to the gym when they're in pain. But if you're naturally someone who lifts and you run, you definitely need to listen to it because it's going to help you. You have to pull back, release, and get everything functioning before you load. You're loading a pattern that's in dysfunction, and that's why your psoas is blaring and pulling on your piriformis. That's why. So running has nothing to do with anything. Running, and that's for everybody. Good. Nothing to do with anything. Running is running will expose any problem you have in your body. So running, oh, thank you. Someone said they love my podcast. So expose any problem you actually have in your body. Will expose that. Running will expose it. So you want to thank the run. So the run is just exposing what's wrong, what's happening in your workouts, your weightlifting. So the run is expressing what's a problem. So that's a good sign. The running is actually saving you from causing a real problem with your hips. So if you're if you're doing a squat rack, I'm going to say stop squat racks. If you're loading anything on your back and doing squats, stop that also. Go more kettlebells, more based, more kettlebells, free range. If you know what closed chain and open, I tend to think weightlifters know those things. So no bars, don't do any bars with free. So go more with the band work, the cable work, or kettlebells. Stay there, because any dysfunction will also show up on there much, much, much quicker and obvious than it will in a basic bar workout. That's an always. So I make sure, just know this, now that I got more information, all information matters. Also, guys, when you're asking questions, don't hesitate to give me a lot of information, because all of this information matters and it changes. I don't know if you're a guy or a girl by your handle, but this person saying that they're a weightlifter changes everything for me, because it's not just a hip dysfunction, it's a loaded dysfunction. That's different now. Now I got muscle to deal with. That's a different story. So when someone has muscle and they're injured, it's a different approach. It's a different approach. I got to come into that very differently, because now that has conditioned this dysfunction. So it's going to fight. It's going to fight correction. So that's why you got to like strip it clean and go to motion, mobility, movement. So everything can kind of what's compromising. I have an entire boot camp on this kind of stuff. So even I have it, it's called RunPainFreeBootCamp.com. It's an entire free course on what hurts runners, why it hurts runners, and then how to correct it. So go on over there now, because I have a whole segment on PT and how you can look at one person. I have a video and I analyze how they're doing a basic movement in a gym and how it looks totally fine, but then I show you how it's actually not. And that is someone that's a runner goes in and does that, how it can hurt them. A single leg squat, a pistol squat. I have an analyzation of that. So go on over there and listen to that as well, because that's going to help you. So that's RunPainFreeBootCamp.com. And that's going to give you an entire course on everything that is hurting you that will actually start to help you. So unfortunately, we lost our live connection on the Academy. So I'm going to keep going. Okay. If I release those muscles, will the reoccurrent mild runner's knee symptoms disappear too? I definitely impact slow down. All your stuff wrong with you. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, subscribe to my podcast. Me too. I wish you found me sooner. Yes, so there's called runner's knee. That's complete BS. That's complete hogwash. There's no such thing called runner's knee. I love it. I love kicking it down all day. There's no such thing as runner's knee. There's nothing ever wrong with your knee. It's all your hip. And because the IT band goes from the outside of your knee, below your knee, comes up past your knee, all the way up the outside of your quad, covers 80% cheek, and then crosses over to the opposite shoulder. Because the IT band is that long, by the way, you'll find that in the podcast as well. I have a whole thing. The hip is the most fibrous portion of the IT band. Because of what? It's protecting your hip joint from breaking and dysfunction, from muscles not firing, like your glutes that are supposed to support the hip. So it pulls on the outer knee. That's what's going on at your knee. There's no such thing as runner's knee. Now, continue to ignore your and you will have problems in your knee. That's when you tear. That's when you start to have actual injury to the knee. It's stuff like this. And someone said, oh, you got runner's knee. That's just what happens as a runner. So keep running. And then you break a knee. That's how that happens. And I talk about that in the Run Pain Free book, specifically the difference in medical health professionals, from an orthopedist to a surgeon, PT, to a personal trainer, to a run coach, to biomechanics. I explain the difference of everything, because we all do different things. What I do is I have to know a bit about all of that to do what I do. And I do, because I've dedicated my life to this. So come to me. Thank you. You'll be here in the Academy later. No, it won't. It'll just be on YouTube again, and probably, yeah. Yep. So there's no such thing as runner's knee, but that's how runners get injured. There's a red flag. Syndrome, like I said, chronic syndrome, itis, it's all bull. It's all bull. Itis is immobility or improper mobility of a joint. Move properly, you're fine. The only real itis is rheumatoid arthritis, and that's an actual disease. That's totally different. And I fixed that too. So, but I'm just saying, itis is just because you're not moving properly, or it's not moving at all from a dysfunction somewhere else, and that's what we fix here. So there's nothing wrong with your knee. I don't know what your name is, but there's nothing wrong with your knee. Not so long, 90. There's nothing wrong with your knee. It's because of your hip, which is why you have the piriformis problem. It's all at your hip. Deeper than that is your psoas, but if you're a weightlifter, you're loading your spine. And what did I just say? Before I even knew that, I said your spine is the most structure in the body. So your spine is going to always be protected. And so if you're loading in weight, and as a weightlifter, if you're lifting weights, you're loading your spine every time. Just standing up is loading your spine. Sitting, your spine is loaded. The only time your spine isn't loaded is either on hands and knees or laying on your back. That is the only time your spine is not loaded. So you're loading a dysfunction and your psoas is telling you, no, this is not okay. So now I'm going to make your hip scream. I'm going to make your piriformis scream because now it's too much for me. And now my sacrum is off because you loaded it that way. And I got all this muscle on my bones and I can't handle it. That's all that's happening. And your knee pain is just a minor result of that. And I mean minor, because knee pain you can fix like this. You need to foam roll. RunPainFreeBootcamp.com. Everything explains this in there. Also, RunPainFreeAcademy.com has all of these courses. The foam rolling course, I have an entire course on plantar fasciitis. I have an entire course on the injuries in there. We do nothing but educate here. That we've been doing this the whole time in quarantine. So we've been online since 2009. So we've been doing this for a long time. I have tons of information. No. You're just loading muscle and making it a little bit. But now you found me, so you're going to fix all of this because I want you to work out. Just you got to work out more in your pattern. We got to get your pattern fixed first. Okay, I'm going to try the academy one more time. Okay. All right. Well, that's sad. The academy will not let me go live. Run Pain Free Academy Instagram. Okay. Checking for. Oh, hi, Natasha. I'm glad I met you. Nice to meet you. You're fine. You're going to be very welcome. You're going to be fine. You're absolutely going to be. Oh, you've just been misled. And honestly, guys, here's the problem. And I have another in the boot camp. I do an over the shoulder of me Googling. So I do what you see and I explain it to you. I have had so much feedback from that alone. It's a module in the boot camp. The entire boot camp, why you're running in pain, why you're being told what you're being told, why it's hurting you, and then how to fix it. That's what the boot camp is about. So I do what you guys do. I went on Facebook. I show you that. I actually have clips of it. And then I do an over the shoulder of what happens when you Google. And that is a big one because I explain what you're seeing. And the problem is you guys are seeing what professional athletes do. That's what you're seeing online, really. And that doesn't translate to regular life. Your jobs are actual jobs. You have work to do. You have families to run. You have events to go to. You have parties. Maybe you're a socialite, whatever the case is. Athletes' jobs are their body. That's it. They need to feed it. They need to rest it, and they need to train it. Period. That's their job. When they're sleeping, you have to get up and go to work. Very different lifestyle. So all of the things online that are for them will never translate to what you do. And you do it, and you wind up broken after broken after broken after strain after this after this after. You know, all of our clients, them come from or Kairos because it's just the repeat, and never any relief. I can't tell you, this year alone, I got 7 people in the first few months of the year who had spent over 3 years in physical therapy. I used to work in physical therapy. There's great therapists. There's nothing against them. When it's a mobility issue, it's not a Band-Aid. It needs to be fixed at the root. Their rehab, we correct. It's different. Once the rehab happens, they should send them over to me, but I'm post-op and pre-op for replacement surgeries on a regular basis because I work with the biomechanics of the body. It's just different. So a lot of that stuff doesn't translate to you guys, and then you go ahead and you do it. And professional Olympian long distance runners, marathon runners they just don't. I have Dina Castor, Marathon Training Summit that we did, marathontrainingsummit.com. No speed work. She was a track and field collegiate competitor. When she transitioned from that to marathon training to run the Olympics and run New York, She had no idea what she was doing. None of this made sense to me. This never made sense to me. I didn't even know, all of this training made no sense to me. I didn't know what this hill training business was. I didn't know any of this. And it all was totally different sport. And so a lot of the times you guys are Googling and seeing all this stuff that doesn't make sense to you. And what's tough is you become really ingrained in it, and it becomes like truth. And then it's your actual belief that that's what you have to do. And I come in with you've never heard, opposite of anything you ever heard, and you're like, no, that doesn't even make any sense. Yeah, it does, because my runners don't hit walls. My runners run by smiling. My runners run several 3, 4, 5 marathons a year. That's normal. And they run and they go out after and they have fun because they're athletically conditioned properly for them specifically and follow a run program that is specific to them. That's why. So you can't, also we are experts taking what professionals do and then translating it and breaking it down to fit your lifestyle. So as a function specialist, I'm a nationally spotlighted expert for FMS, one of 25 that rolled it out for New York City for FMS, for Equinox. So I was a part of that founding crew that made it baseline for all of Equinox. And so we got extensive training in it. And then, so when we were the ones that were piloted to see, because this was created for professional athletes. The creators of FMS deal with Navy SEALs and NFL players and basketball players. I had one of them, Gray Cook, he's a founder for FMS, on the Marathon Training Summit. We had a 2-hour interview. It was amazing. And we talked about LeBron and his duck-footed self. We talked about Tom Brady. We talked about a lot that he's screened in FMS and with their bodies and stuff like that. So they piloted us to see if what they did for professional sports, we could translate to regular people, and we did it. So we actually are experts in taking what you see online, explaining it to you, and then making it work for you. It's a whole different world. It's a whole different world. That's what we do here. That's one of our literal expertise because it doesn't translate into regular life. And a lot of you guys get hurt by doing those things. And I'm just signing on, making sure that everybody is still involved here. So that's why it's important. RunPainFreeBootcamp.com, huge course on literally why what you're doing is hurting you and why you need to stop doing it. Literally, that's what the entire free, by the way. It's totally free. You have to make sure everybody is over here doing things that are good for them and not hurting themselves. Okay, well, I feel bad that I can't get that back on. Okay, let me check for more questions. Let me see. There you go. All right. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Anthony is messaging. I need to get back to him. He feels personally attacked because he didn't listen to me and he busted his Achilles. So that's all right. Listen, I'm fine with honesty. It's when you're not honest that we have a problem. I'm totally fine with being like, Jessica, I did not listen to you and this is what happened. I can fix that. I can't fix when you're not honest. So it's fine. It's totally fine. No attacking Antonio. I don't know why I just said that. Yeah, I'm talking to you. You know I'm talking to you. But yes. Okay. So let me scroll up. I see some questions I missed. Sorry, guys. Continue to ask them. That's what I'm here for. High season. Okay. All right. So, hi, Dia. Nice to see you. Okay, so we're talking marathon training injuries specific because we're up with long runs, we're adding mileage, our bodies are getting a little cooked and we're not used to it. So really once you go over 10 miles, it's a whole different world. Up to 10 miles, you can kind of work with that, but over 10 miles. So if you're about to run a marathon, which a lot of you are doing virtuals, it's even that you're on here today because you're not going to have a med tent. You're not going to have me out there on the course. You need to be as strong and as conditioned as possible into your marathon because you're probably running it alone, if not with 1 or 2 other people that aren't going to be that close to you and they're not me. Or so you really want to be on here and asking questions. I encourage you to message me after this. If you see this in the live stream, if you see this in the live stream replay, or if you see it on YouTube, message. Just DM us anywhere, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or RunPainFree.com. Everything on there is about how you're getting injured, why you're getting injured, and why you can fix it super easy. And that's a free course so that you can stop this madness of being hurt. So we're talking today about adding that long. So really, you should not be running more than 3 days a week. 3 days a week. If you're running more than that, you're asking for an injury. Too short, one long. Keep it simple. If you're not conditioning on the off days, that's the problem. You don't run to run. You condition to run, and it's actually the training to the conditioning. Training and conditioning are two different things. This is athletic conditioning. The RunPainFree program is athletic injury, correction, and conditioning. We do it all at the same time. So we find out what's going on with your body, what's working, what's not, fix that, and then condition the right way, condition the new pattern, and make you functional and strong, and da-da-da-da, you go run and you're fun. That's what we do here. So you got to be conditioning. So that is cross training, but that is sport specific. So you don't want to be doing butt kicks. You don't want to be doing these stupid stretches. Dancer of a million years, stop the friggin' stretching. You need to be foam rolling. You need to be resting. If you're not sleeping, these are all basic things you guys can do. Implement right now, bringing down your days of running, upping your days of foam rolling, watching your sleep patterns alone. That alone will help you. That alone will help you. So I'm going to continue. Oh, Antonio is back because good, wonderful. It's okay. It's all right. You just have to. Yes, foam rolling can save lives, 100%. Now, it's not a cure, but it is the gateway. Is or isn't working, what is pocketed in you, where those knots are, and all that good stuff. And again, just because you have a hand and your running buddy has a hamstring strain, you got a hamstring strain. So stop giving each other advice because you're literally feeding a black hole. Stop it. You don't know what you're talking about, with all due respect. It's whatever job you have. If I came in, and you know what I do for a living, if I came in and spent a couple of days at your job, and then on the 5th day, I'm going to tell you about your job, how would you feel? Exactly. That's what it's like to hear runners giving running advice. You do your job, I'll do mine. Let us professionals do our job. We've worked really hard to know this stuff so that you can do what you like, which is running, and not impose on your career. So let us do our job. Foam rolling is a gateway, so you can figure out what's wrong with you and why your body got jacked up. Just like Natasha that just wrote in a couple of minutes ago. When I found out that she had a lot more of the story with the weightlifting and all of this stuff, and then she had knee pain, it changes the whole thing. Never one thing. Is always so much more involved in why you're getting injured. And you have to keep digging. We dig here. That's why. And the RunPainFreeBootcamp.com, RunPainFreeBootcamp.com is a free course in all of this, literally, because we're nice here. We do a lot of stuff to help people. So that's just one thing. So foam rolling will help you figure out with your hamstring, not what happened to your friend. It's not what happened to your friend. Your foot is different. Your body is different. The way you move is different. Your biomechanics is different. Your gait is different. Your speed is different. All of that is different. So stop basing it on a peer and base it on yourself. In the beginning of the year, we started with a mission that 2020 is the official training year, the year that you actually in yourself and your own, stop being with the noise of people around you, with all your running friends and your running and then the this and the that and this race and that race and over racing. And we had made a big mission of that. And then quarantine kind of enforced it. And so we really here to be the year where you hone it in and find your body and condition it so that you can figure out where these pains are coming from and then actually try to get to the point of fixing them. So that's what this year should be. And this is a great time to do that because the run is only about you anyway. So even though the crowds and all of that is great and it's exciting and it's a big event, true, it will be back. This year is the year you pull it into yourself and you're able to be like, I'll never get another year like this ever. There's such a positive to that. Don't be down about this stuff. Don't be down about the races being canceled. This is a positive. You will never have another time where there's no races that you have to attend, that you're going to be pissed off if you miss. No races. It's all virtual. At best, it's a virtual race. So there's nothing to miss out on. And it is the only time you can actually use this time to really hear what's going on with your body and not the noise of everybody else's bodies. This is an awesome time for a runner. It really is. I've been saying this from day one. It's such a positive. So many of our runners progress beautifully, get into training, athletic conditioning phases, where maybe if they were caught up with other people, they would. So it was an aggressive period for runners. So I want you to use that and really go in and see how your body listening to it and building on it. So many taking this in, listening to our podcast, being on the Marathon Training Summit, so much feedback was like, wow, I really had to get my mentality right, my brain right, because the Marathon Training Summit went over that aspect of it. And so it's really about just getting you back to you. That's the whole point of 2020. So it could be a crap year if you want it, or it could be a year you get yourself right. Like, it's all about how you look at it. Yeah, some shit sucks, but like, it's not the end. Ever get another year where you can just be like, oh, I don't have to do this race and travel here and travel there and get in there. And then I get judged if I don't get into this race, and I'm getting judged if I didn't get a PR. None of that's out. No one cares. Nobody cares. Just you. It's you about you. And I believe that this, listening to that and really taking it in for themselves, are going to really different in running in 2021 and beyond, because they're not going to give two shits about what everybody is saying. They're not going to be worried about being judged. They're running and themselves only. Running is about you being for you and being better the next day. That's the essence of running. Team sport. When you make it a team sport, you get problems. You get a lot of problems because it's not a team sport. It's the one sport that everybody to do great for you, whatever that is, whether it's running a 5 several times a year, or it's running 3 marathons, or it's getting a sub 7, or it's making a sub 12. It's whatever it is for you. And everybody supports you doing what's great for you. That's the truth about it. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. It's just about you. So this is the best year to do that. And so everybody who's still out there and running, I applaud you for taking on the marathons virtually, for sticking with your run programs, and for really using it for eating, better sleeping, getting into the foam rolling, getting your athletic conditioning on, and then joining the races you freaking want to without anything on it. And seeing what your body can do without all the hoopla, without all of the tailwinds, right, that keep you going. It's all about you now. And so even more now, you guys who are running still and doing marathons coming up, whether it's Wineglass, again, London, New York, doing anything going on right now, you are still feeling, the aches and pains of marathon training. And so that's why, because I know people are doing it and I need to give them some feedback. You're going to be out there alone for the most part. And I want to give you that support that you have. So we're still here. We ain't going nowhere. We ain't going nowhere ever. So there you go. And so that's why I'm glad I got on and answered some of these questions, because a lot of them are the same. And September is always a big hamstring month because of the long runs. And so coming into October, it's a big plantar fasciitis month. Injury wise, we're injury people here. We know calendar. So get on here and answer some questions. All right, I'm going to scroll up. I see some that I missed. Again, hamstring strain. Okay, hamstring strain. All right, well, no, that's all I see. So I'll just go hamstring strain for women, and for men, you get it in the meat of the hamstring. I'm not sure if you're a male or female asking that. Is the muscular representation of hip dysfunction around June or July? That's dependent on your athleticism, but June or July kind of starts. By now, if you've been short striding that whole time and now you're getting into longer mileage, you may have a hamstring dysfunction and you're not extending your legs. So the hamstring never fully extends. So your leg, extending your leg in front of you, correct. That's why we don't do butt kicks for long as it doesn't make sense. The hamstring's job for a long distance runner is to assess extension and come back and not hyperextend, but it needs to extend and absorb, come back. And so if you're not extending out, that's a sign that your glute isn't firing to fire up from the back, because that would be a glute. Yeah. Glute comes up behind you, so it fires, and then it brings the leg through so that your hip can flex. Flexes, your butt releases, the hamstring comes out and comes down. The only time the hamstring can actually release is because your glute fired in the first place. So if your glutes, your hip is in dysfunction, and no way in hell is it going to let you extend your leg. It's just not going to happen. So the repetitive action of this means you're short striding. So you're landing close to your toes or midfoot. We talked about that earlier. And so your knee is landing bent, so you're jamming it every time. And so that jams into your hip, your femur, hip flexor. So you'll get hip flexor pain, or you'll feel like joint pain, but it's actually because you're jamming it every time, believe it or not. Toe striking jams, not heel. Heel is full foot function. So you roll through your foot, there's no impact. There's only impact when you have a heel, when you have a stability sneaker on. That's the problem, not the foot movement. It's the friggin' sneaker. But anyway, so because this is repeated, whatever's repeated is conditioned. Repetition creates conditioning. So now you don't want to ever extend the hamstring. I got it. And the IT band tenses up on your knee joint, on your hip joint. And then it's like, oh, okay, you never have to extend, so don't worry about that. And so then you start to condition your hamstring, 2.2 pounds of pressure per step. So you're building muscle the whole run. And so it conditions. And then when it conditions like that, it starts to get really, really built, and it pulls. And it pulls underneath your glute, or it'll strain in the back of your leg. You need to foam roll. You need to sit up underneath your glute, and then you need to get up and start actually extending your hamstring, not stretching it. Stop stretching. Don't stretch a strain. Stop it. You're making it worse. You don't stretch a strained muscle. It's straining. Why would you stretch it more? Foam roll. You got to get juice there. I hope that answers your question. So I'm down to a minute left because, Instagram likes to cut people off. But I hope I answered a lot of questions. I hope you got a lot of information. I will be on live again soon because it's a lot of injuries out there. So follow us. Make sure you're subscribed so that you get our notices when we go live. RunPamp.com. It's a free course on everything that's out there that's hurting you, how you're making it worse, and how you really, really, really fast. And it's a free course. So RunPainFreeBootcamp.com. You're very welcome. Thank you, YouTube. You're very welcome. It's my first live on YouTube. I've been here a long time, but I never went. Thank you for joining in. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Wonderful. I'll be back. More questions, so come with more questions. Everybody on Instagram, thank you. You're very welcome on Instagram. Wonderful. Good to hear you enjoyed it. You're very welcome. DM any questions is what we're here for. RunPainFreeAcademy.com has all of the courses. But get into that RunPainFreeBootcamp.com. Has all of the information in there, guys. And DM. I'll see you soon.